An array is a list of objects, so it's a way of keeping a group of things together and a really useful concept. So we're going to have a look at the Codecademy basic exercises on arrays. So initially we start off declaring it very similar to creating a variable. There are a few ways to declare it, and we've got these square brackets. So these tell us that we're dealing with an array. And inside that we've got a list of items, in this case a list of strings. So we've got the first item, keep a journal, a comma to separate each item, a second item, take a falconry class, and a third item, learn to juggle. And then we can log those and see those on the screen. So we've got a list of different tasks, and they're stored in order. And generally arrays are what's called zero index. So the first item is known as being at position 0, then position 1, and then position 2. But it has a length of 3 because there are 1, 2, 3 items in the array. So let's have a look at what's going. So let's have a look at this. And we're going to run this. So if we hit the run button, we see it just prints out all the contents, and including the little square brackets, because it's printing out the entire array, not just what's in it. So it's printing out the entire object. And arrays are what's called ordered. So everything has a position. So first item, second, and third, and the positions are known as an index. So we're going to go at this, and we're going to create an array. And it's going to have a certain number of elements. So we've got the literal array, which is what we use when we declare it or create it straight away. And we use those square brackets. And you can have an array in JavaScript that can have either all the same data or different data types. In other programming language, you're often limited to just having data of the same type in an array. So remember, it's represented by having the square brackets and the content inside it, and each item inside an array is called an element, and we can have different data types. So here we've got an array with the name news resolutions and 3 elements. So we're now going to create an array using the constant variable and call it hobbies, and being an array with 3 strings inside it. So we've got it, we've declared it, and we're going to use our square brackets. We're going to have some hobbies, so gaming is our first hobby. Gaming, technology, and cycling. And good habit, I'm going to put a semicolon at the end of the line. So we've got it with 3. Now we're going to print those out. So we're going to use console.log and print out that array. And we can see it's printed out the array over there. But we need to actually look at how we can actually access the different elements. So as I mentioned earlier, they're called indexed, and arrays in JavaScript are what's called zero index. So the first item is at position 0, the second one is at position 1 or index 1, and then index 2. And we access them by putting a number inside a set of square brackets. So this one here we've got 1, 2, 3 elements. So index 0 is fortune favors the brave. Index 1 is a joke is a very serious thing. And index 2 is where there is love, there is life. So we can also do that with strings and just plain bits of text, because a string is just an array of letters. So we've got index 0 is H, index 1 is E, 2 is L, 3 is L, 4 is O, 5 is space, 6 is W, 7 is O, 8 R, 9 L, and 10 is D. And so if you get the sixth, it's going to give us 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It'll give us a W, because that is the sixth index. Always throws a bit of problems, the idea of having a 0 index. In computers, we start counting usually at 0. So we've got this example here. So we're going to create a variable called listItem and set it equal to the first item in famous sayings. So that's going to be at index 0. So let's make a variable called listItem, and it's going to be famous sayings at index 0. And we're going to log that to the screen. Note when I write these, I often just put a couple of extra spaces between the code that I write. If I run this, it's not going to run because list item's not defined, because I had a lowercase I there and need to be a capital. So we've now got fortune favors the brave. Awesome. And we want to console.log the third element. So that's going to be index 2 using bracket notation. So we're not going to create a variable for this one. We're just going to do console.log famous sayings. And I'm going to just give it the direct index to access. So we don't need to save it to another variable before we log it. Now we're going to have a go at trying to log the third item, which is going to fall off the array, because there is no, well, not third item, fourth item. Because 0, index 1, index 2, index 3 doesn't exist. So this will give us what's called an array out of bounds error. Or in this case, it tells us undefined, because we've fallen off the end. Much the same as we can't sort of get a -1 index, because there is no negatives. Okay, now if we use the let command to create the array, it means we can actually change any of the content in here. If we used const to make it a constant, we couldn't change it, because if you remember back, const is a constant. Once we create it, we cannot modify it. So we can update its values. So let's get the content in there, and let's go and look at updating it. So we've got the 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, or fall. I think there's a song in there somewhere. Season 3, we're going to change that to be autumn. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So 4, we're going to overwrite that to be autumn. And then we're going to log out what it prints, and it will print out whatever's been changed in there. So we're modifying this from being an Americanized version to a generally anglicized or British orientation. So we're going to change the second element of the array, grocery list, to avocado. So the second element is tomatoes, which is at index 1, and that is going to become avocados. So we're going to do grocery list to avocados. Oh, sorry, grocery list 1 is 0, 1. And helps if I actually spell correctly. There we go. So, as I sort of alluded to earlier, the in const, so if we use the const keyword, we cannot change the elements in the array. Actually, well, we actually can in JavaScript. So we can actually change the content of these, but we can't change the name of the array. So we can change the contents, but we can't give it a new array or a different value, or basically overwrite this to basically just store a number instead of an array, or add a fifth element. We can only keep these 4 items. So in this, we're going to reassign the element index 0 of condiments to mayo. So we got that. So condiments index 0 to mayo. Capital M. and then log it to the console. But we're logging the whole array. Good, we've got that. Now below this, we're going to reassign condiments to be a new array that contains just. Now, so we're going to change the whole condiments array to be one that just has mayo. Oh. And log that to the. Okay, no, we don't, because we're overwriting what's there, we don't need to actually put the word condiments in there. Oh, and let's log the results to the screen. So we've gone and printed that out. Now, below the code from C2, reassign the last element from the utensils to spoon. So we're going to do utensils 0, 1, 2, 3 is assigned to spoon, and then log that. And we can see it's able to update that. Okay, now arrays have a length, and in this case 1, 2, 3, so it's the number of elements in an array. So we can do the name of the array dot length, and it will give us the answer 3, so how many items are in there. Or in this other example, 1, 2, new as resolution dot length gives us the answer 2. So what we're going to do is find out the length of this. So we're going to log it to the console, console.log objectives.length. So remember, if we looked at dot notation briefly before, so dot, do something with the objectives and get the length of it. So it's something that it knows how to do. Now we've got 3. Awesome. Now, push basically adds things onto the array. So it's not really a true array in terms of other languages, other programming languages. So push basically allows us to add something onto the end of an array. So if I do 0, 1, 2, if I do push item 3 and item 4, it'll add those onto the end of the array. So it basically makes a new array. It changes it and mutates it. So we can only use this when we've got a... Let's have a look. So we've only got certain ways we can actually use this. So it changes and mutates the array. So let's have a look at what actually happens here. So we've got our chores. Chores.push. Add 2 elements. So I'm going to clean the room. And what else should we have? I'm going to defrag the hard drive is my other job. So what it's done is it's mutated it, it's added it on. And now we're going to actually go and have a look at printing out what's in there. So I'm going to use console.log. And I'm going to write the chores. So we can see now we've got 5 items in the array. So it's pushed and added those on. Pop is the next one. Pop it off the top. So it removes the last item in an array. So in this case, it will remove item 2. And in the example here, if I pop that, it would remove mop floor, the last item. It doesn't take any arguments, so there's nothing inside those little brackets. It just removes the last item and stores it in a location. So we're going to just remove the last item. So we're just going to go chores.pop, and then we're going to log it. And we can actually see it's removed it there. What we can actually also do is actually create a variable to store some of this information. So I'm going to have something called removed item. It's not going to be set to anything. Removed item is assigned to chores.pop, so it actually pulls it out and it's going to store it in that variable there. And I'm going to log that. So you can actually see it's pulled out that string, which I can then use somewhere else. It's really useful for being able to use data that's contained in an array in different locations. So if you had, say, a whole section of like random cards, you can actually pull them out and remove them from the list. So there are a whole bunch of other different methods that are for arrays. So if we look in the documentation, there's different ways of setting up our arrays, accessing them, what we've looked at already. Removing them, there's things like splice, there's like slice, and so on. Whole heap. State properties, from check if it is an array of, we can concatenate, join it, copy within, fill it, join, a lot of different types of array functions and things we can do with arrays. And common ones, join them together, slice, split them up, or chop off, splice, break into two, shift, move things, unshift, then back, concatenate, joining together, very similar. So we're going to use the shift method. So let's have a look. To remove the first item. So let's go and look at the shift method. So it removes the first element in an array and returns that removed it. And it changes the length of the array. So it's modifying it. So we're just going to do grocery list dot shift. We don't give it any arguments. And it removes it. Oh, but I forgot to log it to the console. What we see now is it's removed orange juice off the list. Now, under the code, so we're going to do .unshift. Let's see what happens here. Oh, it's one word, it's not two, so we're just going to change that. And so we've sort of unshifted here. Now to unshift, we actually have to give an argument. So we need to tell it what is going to be added because it doesn't know what's been removed. So we're going to tell it that we want to add in popcorn in this example. So we want to unshift, so add popcorn to the start of the list. So you can see it's been added in here. So it was removed, orange juice was removed and then it was added on. Okay, so we've got a little modification here. So in a hurry, and we're going to use the slice tool. So we only want them to pick up bananas, coffee beans, and brown rice. So bananas, coffee beans, and brown rice. So after this little code, we want to get these. So we need to think about what index these are at. So if we look at the slice documentation, we give it positions. So if I give it index 2, 0, 1, 2, it gets everything after that. So we're using index positions. So if I want to get just and it's exclusive. It doesn't include the last one. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So a slice of 2 and 4 gets the second and third, but excludes the fourth. So that's a key thing to remember. So let's have a go with that. So we're just going to do grocery list dot slice, and we want bananas, so 0, 1 up to brown rice. 1, 2, 3, and we've got to go 1 past, so we're going to do 4. Haven't logged that to the screen yet. Oh, I need to actually store that in a variable. So I'm actually going to make a new list, and I'm going to store that new slice into there because it doesn't actually modify the original list, and I'm going to print out the new list. So you can see here I've just got that new option. So we've got bananas, brown rice here, but the way this question is actually wanting us to write it is it actually wants us to put that information inside that array. What we did still achieves the same result. It is just the way that this Codecademy is actually marking our work and checking it. So we're going to log it to the console one more time. Yeah, so we're just going to do that grocery list. And we can see it's still got the original information. So it doesn't actually modify the original contents of the array. It essentially can make a new one with just those components. So last one is using finding the index. So we're going to get index of something. So we're going to try and match up the content. So same with this one, we're just going to console.log it. And we use the grocery list and index of, and inside the index of brackets we're going to type in the name of what we're looking for. So in this case I want to look for pasta, and it's told me that pasta was at position 4. Now this time it's wanting us to actually store that in a variable, but I've still done a bit of work here. I know it's got me that 4, so I'm going to make a constant. And I want to call it pasta index, and I'm going to pull that out, and now it actually works and marks that one. Awesome. Okay. So now we're going to have a look at arrays and functions. So remember we looked at functions before, and functions are really useful when combined with arrays because it means we can sort of write some code to sort of carry out different activities on the array automatically. We've actually used a few functions. So the dot push, dot pop, slice, they're functions that have actually been written already for arrays by somebody else. We don't need to know how it works behind the scenes. We just we know that it does, so we can reuse it over and over. Saves us having to do all that manually. So this also links in with the idea of scope a little bit. So we've got the idea that we want to push and pop some items onto an array. So we've got an array of flowers: peony, daffodil, marigold, and a function to add a flower to that. So essentially that's the same as sort of doing that sort of push onto it. But we just know we want to add a flower. So we're going to call the function add flowers, and then when it runs it takes the array. So AAR now is actually referring to the flowers array, pushes Lily onto the end of it. And then when we log it and print out the whole thing, it prints out those 4 items. So originally it had 3, it's now got a 4th because this was a global variable which is used by everything. So when we modify it inside a function, it is modifies that variable, that global variable. So let's have a look at what we've got here. So constant concept arrays with 4 items, index of 3 is mutated. So when we change the array, we give it the array. In position 3, we change mutated to be capitals and change array concept. So let's have a look at what's gone. So we want to log that to the console. Let's see what it prints out. So you can see arrays can be mutated. So it prints that out. So we're going to modify this. So under the console.log statement, we're going to create another function called remove element. And we're going to take a parameter called new array, and we're going to do new array, so whatever that function that parameter is, dot pop, just remove the item, and then we're going to log that to the screen. But we need to actually run the function, so we're going to remove the element from the array of concept. So it's done that, but hasn't actually removed it yet. And then log it to the screen. Now you can see it's removed that last item. Nested arrays is a term that for when an array is inside another array. We can have things like nested loops or nested if statements when another statement or another piece of code is stored inside another one. So what we've got here is an array, just the value 1 in it, which is stored inside another array, and a second array with 2 and 3 in it, which is stored inside the bigger array. Now, accessing these becomes a little bit more complicated, so we use bracket notation with the index values. So let's have a look at how we can actually access these. Now this is a little bit sort of complex. So if we do nested array bracket 1, it's going to get the nested array at position 1. So this is index 0 and this is index 1, so it's going to get that whole array 2, 3. Now we use brackets, so if I do nested array 1, gets the first array, and if I put a second set of brackets, it gets the second item, or the index 0 of that array, so it's going to get us number 2. So it's quite useful. You know, you can sort of visually sort of represent these in a grid pattern, you know, with the first array swimming across and then the second array being a vertical sort of column. But as soon as we start getting more, it has more and more dimensions. So let's create a nested array. So let number clusters be an array. Okay, so it's going to have 3 array elements. So the first array is going to have 1 and 2 in it. Second array is going to have 3 and 4. And this last one is going to have 5 and 6. So we've actually got 4 arrays here. One main one, and then an array inside it, array inside it, and an array inside it. Let's run that and see what we get. Okay. So we're going to use the constant keyword, target, and we want to access the element 6. Whoa, that's really awful way of writing that. Because it's not really element 6, it's the element with a value of 6, but it's actually the second element of the third element. The second element of the third array. So I'm going to do const target is assigned to num clusters. Now I need to get 0, 1, 2. So second position, and I want to get 0, 1. And now I've actually managed to pull that out. Can actually, if I want to actually print that, so you can see it's actually got that 6th item. So arrays are a really complex topic. Key thing is they've always got the brackets. They're basically a list of data, and we always start counting at position 0. Keywords is element, is referred to what the data is that's stored, and we access them by giving the name of the array, square bracket, and its index, its position. And there are other functions that we can use to carry out some tasks like slice, shift, push, pop, and so on, to access and manipulate data in arrays. So that's it for this section, and take your time, keep practicing.